Hi, welcome to class once again, and I'm so excited to be with you today. In this class, we'll talk about the Pythagoras Theorem. Pythagoras Theorem. And like I said in our previous lecture, that the Pythagoras Theorem is a very important theorem. In fact, it's one of the most important theorems in mathematics. And it was postulated by one of the greatest mathematicians and philosophers of our time. Is that okay? Between 560 to 500 BC. Now, in mathematics, the Pythagoras Theorem is a fundamental relation in the Euclidean geometry among the three sides of a right-angled triangle. Like we said in our previous lecture, that the right-angled triangle, of course, is of this form, where this side, let's call this angle the angle we are talking about. And this angle here is A, B, and C. Okay? We said any side facing the angle is usually called the opposite side. And it takes the small letter of the angle, which is C. So this is side C. Is that okay? Now, the side facing the right angle is called the hypotenuse. And of course, it is usually the longest side in the right angle triangle. And I said it is denoted with the symbol B. While the last angle here, if we are considering A as the angle, then of course I said any side facing the angle is the opposite side. So if the angle is over here, this side becomes the opposite side. Is that okay? But in this case, our angle is at point C. So this last side is called the adjacent side of the right angle triangle, and it is noted with a small letter. Now, the Pythagoras theorem states that the areas, okay, let us consider the squares below. Let's say there's three squares were combined to form the right angle triangle, just like this. Let's say we have this square, and we have another square like this, bigger square, and another square like this. You will agree with me that these three squares formed a right angle triangle, which is this. Is that okay? This is the right angled triangle. So if this first side here is called I, if this first box is called I, while the second one is called II, and this bigger one is called the III. So when three squares are combined together to form a right angle triangle, then the Pythagoras theorem holds. And it states that the area of the square whose side is the hypotenuse is equal to the area of the other two squares. Is that okay? Now, we said that the longest side is usually the hypotenuse, right? And you agree with me that this is the longest side. So Pythagoras theorem states that the square of the side, is that okay, which is the hypotenuse, that is the square of this side, is equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides. And considering these three squares mathematically, let's say these squares are drawn in such a way that they form right angle, like we've seen in this figure that we have over here. We can write, let's say we have these three right angle triangles. So by Pythagoras law or theorem, the area of square 3 is equal to the area of square 1 plus area of square 2. And let's say the area of square 3, 2, and 1 are A, B, C respectively. So let's say the area of this square is A. Let's call this one C because it is 3. Let's call this C. While the area of square 1, let's call it A. And the area of square 2, let's call it B. So by Pythagoras' law or Pythagoras' theorem, it states that C squared equals A squared plus B squared. And this is the Pythagoras theorem. Is that okay? Now, alternatively, this law or this theorem can be stated as follows. You can state it in another form, which states that the sum of the squares of the length of the two short sides of a right angle triangle is equal to the length of the hypotenuse side. So let's say we are familiar with the right angle triangle. This is seen as the longest side, which is the hypotenuse, while this, let's say the angle is here, this is the opposite and this is the adjacent. So the square of the hypotenuse is equal to, that's hypotenuse square is equal to opposite squared plus adjacent squared. And if this is A, B, and C, and we say this is C, this is B, and this is A. So hypotenuse square, which is B squared, equals opposite, which is C squared, plus adjacent, which is A squared. So whichever way the question comes, you just have to note that the hypotenuse side is usually the longest side, while the other two sides could assume opposite or adjacent in mathematical analysis. Is that okay? So if you're solving it, you can put anyone as the opposite or the adjacent. Do you understand? But while denoting them in the figure form, like whilst you're drawing the right angle triangle, you must take note that the side facing the angle is always your opposite side. Is that okay? While the longest side is the hypotenuse and the other side is the adjacent side. In conclusion, consider the example below. Use Pythagoras theorem. That's using Pythagoras theorem. Using Pythagoras theorem, we are asked to find the third side of a right angle triangle A, B, C if the two sides, the two other sides are 3 and 4 respectively. 3 and 4 respectively. So if the adjacent and the opposite sides are 3 and 4 respectively. This is very simple as we can compute it just right away. Now this is the right angle triangle where let's take this to be our theta. Is that okay? Let's take this to be our theta while this is the opposite. Is that okay? The opposite. And they said the opposite side is 4 while this automatically becomes the adjacent, and the adjacent side is 3, and the hypotenuse side is what we are looking for. Let's call they said A, B, and C. Okay, so A is our opposite, B is our hypotenuse, while C is the adjacent. From Pythagoras theorem, we're told that the hypotenuse square equals opposite squared plus adjacent squared. Okay, so what is our hypotenuse square? B square equals the opposite square, which is our 4. Opposite is 4, so 4 square plus the adjacent side, which is 3 square. So B square equals 16 plus 9. Of course, B squared equals 25. Therefore, B equals square root of 25, which is equal to 5. So the hypotenuse side is equal to 5. The hypotenuse side is equal to 5. We can now go over to the special angles since we have a clearer understanding of Pythagoras theorem. In our next class, we'll talk about the special angles. If you have questions for me, you can send them in as I will attend to them promptly. Till we meet again in our next class. Bye.